Want to talk also, with all the craziness going on in the world, about what's going on the college campuses, because I think it needs a little bit more illumination, if you will. And it's kind of scary what's happening out there. And to kind of break this all down for us is we have on the line Jeff Lax. He's a CUNY law professor at Kingsborough Community College and founder of Safe Campus, which advocates for Zionist Jews discriminated against and excluded on college campuses. Jeff, thanks so much for joining us on the Brian Kilmeade Show.
Great to be with you, Jason. Thank you for all you do.
Well, listen, there's something that's been happening here that the president of Columbia, embattled is kind of a soft word for everything that's been going on there, had to resign due to a, quote, period of turmoil after these anti-Israel student protests. But you're closer to it than I am. Tell us what's happening, why this went down, and what your perspective is of it.
Well, first of all, President Shafik is a total disgrace. Before she stepped down, it's not like she stepped down in the midst of the heat of all the anti-Semitism. She waited to get a cushy job in the UK, working for the UK government, and puts out a letter yesterday, a long, long letter, actually, which talks about in detail her new job. I mean, you know, you've been on campuses and you
Right.
worked for big companies. I've never seen a top leader at any organization talk in great detail about their new job. People at that location don't want to hear about that. They're usually upset that their leader is leaving. In this case, a lot of people are happy about it, but nobody wants to hear how great your new job is in great detail. And so she talks about that in depth and doesn't address in even one word about anti-Semitism on her campus. And then she rides off into the sunset with her, essentially, golden parachute. So she's a complete disgrace. And what I'm hearing from some insiders, Jason, is that the new interim president who comes from the medical school, which I always kind of like because medical, leaders, medical institutional leaders have to be a little bit more reasonable. They really have no choice because they are dependent on funding and, things actually, it's like, an airline pilot. You want a pilot, it's about this whole DEI mess with
Right.
areas in the workplace where you don't really care what somebody looks like. You care they can get you somewhere safely. You care if someone can do surgery on you safely. So a lot of people are optimistic about the interim president. We'll see. But Shafik was a disgrace, and I think a lot of people were happy that she stepped down.
Quickly, how bad was it? I mean, what was life like? I mean, I've seen the video of it. I've read articles about it, but how bad was it?
It was bad. And, I'm not at Columbia. I'm at CUNY, the City University of New York. This all started at my university. This whole thing started at CUNY. And there were connections between all these groups. So when they were doing the Gaza those tent encampments, which violated the law, they were illegal at Columbia. When they were finally thrown out of Columbia, they marched down to City College at CUNY. And what did they do at my university? They tore down the American flag from City College. And this is a public, Columbia is terrible, but it's a private university. To me, it's a whole different story once you go to a public university and do the things that you're doing with the Gaza encampments. So first thing they do is they pull down the American flag, which always my stomach drops to the floor anytime I see that. And then they raise the Palestinian flag in its place. So in a public college in New York City with 20% Jews in New York City, Congressman, and to raise a foreign flag is despicable. And that's what they did. And the one message I really want to drive home to your listeners is that, there is this idea that students are the ones leading this charge. It is not true. I work with these people every day, the faculty. It is the unions. These unions are horrific At these union meetings, the faculty members, which make them up, and these are really radical faculty. This is basically a room full of Ilhan Omars and Rashida Tlaib's. That's really what it is. These are Islamo-Marxists. They call each other comrade, not as a joke. They're not kidding. They really view each other as comrades. These are dyed-in-the-wool Marxists, and they are the ones organizing these rallies. Yes, the students are the face of it, but the funding and organization, and we have emails. My organization has sources embedded all over the place across universities, and so I have emails right in front of me right now that I'm looking at where they talk about organizing these Gaza encampments and helping these students to organize them. So for people who think these are just misguided, 19-year-old students or 21-year-old students, whatever, that's really never what it is. There's always faculty members, funding, and a union behind it. Really important for people to understand that.
I think this really needs to be fleshed out because you got to follow the money. I don't think that these protests, a lot of them, I'm not convinced that they're 100% spontaneous. I see and hear stories about people being bussed in. I think that needs to be explained. The Department of Justice will tell you that white supremacy is like the number one threat to America. But if the Department of Justice were truly doing its full job, they would also understand and expose how these things are going down, because these are not peaceful protests. If our Constitution allows for the protesting of our government peacefully, it does not allow them to do it non-peacefully. I want you to listen to this clip. This is Alicia Baker on Fox and Friends. This happened earlier on what the next Colombia president needs to do. And I want to have you hear his take on it and then get your reaction to it. Cut 25.
I've been saying all year that this has never been about President Shafiq or one person. This is about leadership and governance at Colombia. And all I can think about is what happens next. Mm-hmm. Will our next president be willing to, put her foot down and lead strongly in a way that will shut down what you're seeing on your screen right now and make sure that it can be a safe and productive learning environment for everyone?
What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, absolutely. And the first thing the new president has to do is end the investigation into Professor Shai Davidai. Shai Davidai has stood up a Jewish faculty member at Columbia. He's really become the face, I think, of the counter-protest movement to what's going on. And Columbia has placed him under investigation. Why? For complaining about anti-Semitism. Because the people on the far left, the Islamo-Marxists, are claiming that his counter-protests, that's not free speech, of course, according to them. And he's been placed under investigation for making anti-Semitism complaints. By the way, 4 professors at CUNY, including me, were placed under investigation for the same reason. I was cleared because I didn't do anything wrong. All I did was complain about the anti-Semitism. But but I went through a hellish process, an 8-month-long investigation, and still to this day they refused to give me the findings. All they did was give me a letter saying that I was cleared of all charges. But I think to answer your question, I think the president needs to end that investigation immediately because it's a disgrace. It reminds me of 1930s Nazi Germany, and that should be ended. And then, of course, when these incidents are going to start again, a lot of people are asking, are we going to have the same thing in the fall? Yes, absolutely. There are several websites out there that are already planning. Yeah.
Jeff, I'm glad you're on top of it. I have to go because I got to get a commercial because I got a great guest, Mike Howell from the Oversight Project from Heritage coming on. But I'm glad you're on top of this. We are going to follow it. And thanks so much for joining us on the Brian Kilmeade Show.
Thank you, Congressman. Appreciate it.
All right. Jeff